What is good and what is up, y'all? It's your boy here, Jay, back and better than ever with another episode of Thunder Banter. The Thunder bounced back this week after a rough end to the week last week in back-to-back losses, entering this week playing the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, and rounding out the week tonight against the Nuggets, getting that dub, and now looking into next week against the San Antonio Spurs. But let's get right into it, all right here on Thunder Banter. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Thunder Banter. The Thunder get back to some normalcy, grabbing a couple dubs from this past week against the Pelicans and to round out the week tonight against the Nuggets, but did stumble midweek against the Timberwolves, but back to some normalcy, especially after such a disappointing end to last week with back-to-back losses, just something that's unlike this team and unlike the nature of this team. But they are back to some winning ways, especially against some very solid teams who I know the Pelicans don't have a great record, but they play solid basketball, as well as the Nuggets, obviously being a playoff caliber team and obviously having Jokic back into the fold. So three solid really games this week, and everybody's going to give the best effort against the defending champs. So knowing the fact that we also have been stumbling on ourselves, if you want to say that, but knowing that and getting back to the winning ways in normal basketball that they have been playing. So let's get right into it as the Thunder ended the week 2 for 3 and now looking into next week as we have a potential Western Conference Finals matchup. Thunder enter another gauntlet of a week and managed to bounce back from back-to-back losses to end last week, settling back into some comfortable basketball, winning 2 of their last 3 games, winning tonight versus the Nuggets 121-111 in a tough-fought game with Jokic back but no Aaron Gordon. Nuggets, this game tonight, after a couple days off, the Thunder pull off, a close one, pull one out in Denver 121-111. It seemed a lot closer than the score, portrayed, but it was a great dub in Denver to end the week after a tough loss on Thursday night to the Timberwolves. The Nuggets fought hard with Jokic back and no Aaron Gordon, lighting up the three-point line, but just wasn't enough as the Thunder's third quarter, led by MVP SGA and Cason Wallace, had themselves a night. SGA led all scorers with 34, 5, and 13, plus 22 plus or minus, just a typical MVP night, as SGA now has 120 games with 20 plus points, only 6 games behind the great Wilt Chamberlain, guys. The record of 126 games that Wilt holds is now in reach. I know that it was in reach beforehand, but it's really in reach now, and it's wow, just wow. Just unreal and greatness we are witnessing. I mean, it's nuts and flying under the radar, guys. I understand, a little bit of hatred from half the league in regards of SGA. Not sure why. I'm sure it's has been a plethora of reasons why people don't like SGA. But my point is this, even if it's a player that people don't really like, it's a statistic that people shouldn't just gloss over and be like, it's whatever. This game or this record has not been touched ever. And so the only person that's touched this record has been the person himself that holds the record. And what I mean by that is he surpassed himself. Obviously he has his record and he's the one that did it, but I'm saying he surpassed himself at one point to get to 126 games rather, of 20 plus points what Wilt Chamberlain did. And that was way back when. To do it in this era, to do it against these types of athletes, I understand the foul baiting or whatever you want to go about it. That's still 20 points a game for 120 games. It's beyond, we all know that's beyond a full season. It's just flabbergasting. And I understand the hatred for SGA. I personally don't understand it, but I understand it from a broader perspective, from the outside looking in. I personally don't hate SGA. He's my favorite player in the league right now, obviously on my favorite team. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I understand where the hatred's coming from, but to hate him so much that you don't want to acknowledge the things that are happening on your screen, It's tough. It's tough as a fan of a person of an athlete that is, as a former athlete, is putting all his might into this game and is doing this, and it's just, I mean, we're witnessing greatness. We're witnessing greatness, and I hope and pray that everybody who's watching this continues to acknowledge and appreciate what they watch when they watch the Oklahoma City Thunder, because it's just absolutely ridiculous, guys. Absolutely ridiculous. But Wallace also got the call for the starting nod tonight and had a career high in threes, dropping 27 points with 7 threes tonight, guys. 7 threes, unreal, with a 14 plus or minus. He had 27 and 6 on the night, but had a positive 14 plus or minus. Just unreal from Case and Wallace. Fantastic night. Fantastic night from 3. And that's what I've been lamenting to as help for SGA besides, himself and maybe Chet. We need another person besides Wig off the bench too, who has been inserted into the starting lineup here and there because of the, absence of Dub. But at the end of the day, we have been needing some scoring, and I'm just glad that Case and Wallace stepped up to the plate. OKC had all their starters in positive plus or minus, as 3 starters were in double figures, Shea, Wallace, and Chet, as Chet had 14, 4, and 1 with 3 blocks. Wiggins had 14 off the bench and 3 for 6 from 3, as Joe also had 3 threes off the bench. Thunder shot 47% from the field and a tad better at 3-point land, with 40% from 3-point land, with 22 made free throws as well. Thunder had an even rebound total of 39, which is great to see as well, and had 12 steals, forcing 17 turnovers and 13 turnovers themselves, though. Thunder also out-rebounded a team tonight, 12-8. Also had 6 blocks, right? Thank goodness we out-rebounded on the offensive side of the thing on the boards, and we had 6 blocks tonight. Nuggets, on the other hand, still shot well with 49% from the field and 46% from 3, with 16 threes, but 71% from the free throw line. Just not okay. 17 turnovers also will not help, not to mention all starters in negative plus or minus, and Jokic did what he could with 16, 7, and 8, but had 6 turnovers by himself. Overall, the Nuggets put up a solid fight. Jonas Valanciunas had 13 points in 13 minutes, but just overall wasn't enough, as the third quarter was way too much, even though the Nuggets scored more in the fourth quarter. Case and Wallace, Shea Gilly having a great night, and that was the big difference why the Thunder won tonight against the Nuggets in a solid game by the squad. And also, not to mention the third quarter. So, but let's get into the earlier this week and how we got to this point in essentially, the better basketball that we have been playing. Now on to how we started this week with the W versus the Pels after a rough end to the week last week with back-to-back losses. Thunder bounced back on Tuesday against the Pelicans after their back-to-back losses to end the week, 104-95, after an abysmal couple of nights, just not having their night. At the end of that, that last week just wasn't their type of basketball, but they managed to turn it around. Didn't shoot all too well, as they shot 40% from the field and 34% from 3, but they had 16 turnovers as well, which is unlike the Thunder. But the length and grit of the young Pelican squad played a role, as Dort and Fears would get into it at the end of the game. Look, a lot of people are hating on Dort right now because they think that he's a very malicious player and an aggressive player, and he's not out there to, play basketball. I mean, again, I've been on this train about Dort being a physical player that goes out with no malintent. And I understand, and he's getting into some awkward positions, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to defend himself. Just because he's defending himself in that moment against Fierce after the game does not mean that Lou Dort is a dirty player. Anybody else would defend himself. I'm sure Fierce has said something throughout the entire game, and I'm sure that wasn't the first time that they had been talking at the end of the game. Was when they were talking at the end of the game. I'm sure that wasn't the first time. I'm sure that was not the first time, guys. And I feel like a lot of fans think it was just this one game and it boiled over. No, it's probably been boiling over for a couple games because the Thunder have played the Pelicans before. So Fierce has probably said something because Fierce has also been known to say a lot of things with that mouth of his. So being the young player that he is, being the name on his back, and having that zero fears, I mean, there's just so many different things that are going for the fact that that this kid is not going to back down from anything, especially Lou Dort. I just don't think that Lou Dort is a malicious player by any extent whatsoever. He's not, someone that's getting ejected left and right. He's not someone that's, throwing haymakers. I mean, we can go on the train of Dylan Brooks and, Draymond Green, but that's not who I view Lou Dort as at all. I understand that what happened at the end of the game, but that's just the physical nature of basketball. People don't understand how physical basketball is. It's one of the most physical sports. I understand that you get a lot of fouls, but the contact that you don't see is still very physical. I mean, so it was a very, very physical and hard-fought game. But like I said, the length and grit of this young Pelican squad played a role with the 16 turnovers that the Thunder had. But we, all in all, still managed to pull out this dub. All that said, the Pelicans held their own. But we're limited to, a surprising worst 3-point, to a limited 3-point effort to a team that is the worst 3-point defensive team in the NBA, only shooting 10 of 40, 34%. Also only having 8 turnovers on the game, 18 steals with 11 blocks. But the Thunder late surge plus the 91% from the free throw line made the difference in this game. But the presence of the MVP himself also made the difference of this game, as Shea led all scorers with 29, also having 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Also leading the way with a plus 14 plus or minus. Chet also had 20 points, and Joe had 17 off the bench with 5 made threes. Dort and Wiggins also had good games with 12 and 13, and Wiggins finally getting comfortable with the starter role with Dub out. Overall, was a great game for the Thunder to bounce back, also having all their players in positive plus or minus, so great to see the bounce back game from them. But stumbled midweek against the Timberwolves, who, like I said, match up very well against this Thunder squad. But then the Thunder ran into another buzzsaw as the Timberwolves were looking to put a number on the Thunder, looking to make it their 2 wins versus the Thunder this season, and they did just that, 123-111, as the Timberwolves shot the lights out, shooting 51% from the field and 22 of 47 from 3. 47% from 3, as McDaniels went 5 of 5 from 3, while Edwards and Naz Reid both had 4 threes themselves, not to mention all starters in double figures, and all starters were positive 12 plus or minus or above, with Edwards leading the way with 26, 5 and 5 and a positive 24 plus or minus. McDaniels also had 21, 4 and 4, and Reed had 18 off the bench. Timberwolves, even though had 19 turnovers, Thunder did not capitalize on those turnovers and were out-rebounded OKC 46-36, and an offensive rebound for 15-11. Thunder had 15 turnovers, another high turnover night, as the Wolves had 12 steals on those turnovers. Thunder also didn't shoot bad, but not great from 3, as they shot 48% from the field and 35% from 3. Shea led the way in all scorers once again with 36 and 8. Even though Shea had a great night with 36 and 8, the Thunder couldn't get it done, as Chet and Wiggins were the only 2 other starters that were in double figures with 15 and 10. Hart finally came back into the mix off the bench, but had 11 points himself, playing only 18 minutes because of his, coming back from his injury. Wallace also had a decent night with 13 points, but overall wasn't enough, as all the starters were in negative plus or minus, and the inability to create their own shot was exposed in this game. Not to mention, our 3-point defense was absolutely abysmal. Overall, it's going to be interesting facing off against this team in the future, because they are dangerous. They are very dangerous. They are long, play defense, and are physical, who can all shoot threes and match up very well with the Thunder compared to the Denver Nuggets or the Lakers even. I still think the Spurs are the best matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Us, obviously, overall, it will be the Spurs or the Timberwolves who we meet in the Western Conference Finals, guys. But that's how we got through this week. And I think that overall, all that being said, it was just a solid week of basketball compared to the weeks prior. I just felt like it was lackluster. We had no energy. and it was just a very lull period. And now we're getting into the back end of the first half of the season and into the All-Star break, and we're starting to pick up the pace just a tad. But now looking into next week, and we will see what's going to happen into next week as we face off against the Spurs, y'all. Whew. I'm excited. We start off with the Magic at home and then head to San Antonio for our last matchup versus the Spurs before a potential playoff series. And we then end the week with another tough squad who seems to have it all figured out in the Houston Rockets. Another tough week, and another week everyone is going to bring their best game, and we have to be prepared for it. But after tonight's W, I feel confident in the direction, not to mention being on the lookout for a possible trade as the trade deadline ends on Thursday, February 5th, guys. February 5th, trade deadline. Thunder really aren't in talks, but we are in talks now as Hart has been in potential talks. So be on the lookout. I wouldn't be shocked if, Isaiah Hartenstein would be put out there, but I've also said Lou Dort. So who knows, guys? Who knows? We need to be on the lookout. So be on the lookout for Hart to be possibly moved, and I wouldn't be shocked because, like I said, Presti is never satisfied, but haven't been in trade talks in years, guys. Years. Because of our young depth. Either way, we need to be prepared for anything, and especially for next week, we face the San Antonio Spurs, a potential Western Conference Finals matchup, because they have our number. With 3 wins versus us this season, it's just one of those. It feels like they've dominated us, so we need to change that tone right before the playoffs. And we need to be prepared. The All-Star game is also around the corner, and congratulations to late edition of Chet Holmgren. Chet! Yes, sir. Chet Holmgren, as he has been selected to his first All-Star game and also has been in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, an improvement on his end and the third in the league in blocks with 2 blocks per game. So congrats to Chet getting the selection to the All-Star game. I know he's been grinding and working towards that goal and finally achieving that. And you can kind of see, and I could feel that energy, feel the hunger in him wanting to be an All-Star and wanting more than, what he got last year, getting the ring, but also wanting more personal success. And I felt that throughout the entire roster, not just with Chet, but doing this and getting the All-Star and then hopefully finish this season strong with the Defensive Player of the Year award would be just absolutely amazing. But like I said, congrats to Chet. I definitely felt that energy this season with him, especially the way he started the season on fire and not only blocks and defense, but hitting his threes at a higher clip. And I'm just happy for the progression of Chet and not settling for anything less, knowing, yes, he had to get bigger and stronger, but also get better. And he is doing just that in his 3rd season. But all in all, I love to see the success of the Thunder after so many dark years, but now back and better, baby. Back and better. Hope it continues and health continues with this team. But let's get ready for Orlando, San Antonio, and Houston this week as we ended the week on a high note, because that is a wrap of this episode of Thunder Banter, baby. I will see you guys next week. Thunder up. We out.